Do not fall asleep on me, okay? Hey, stay with me. The wind slices down the empty Boston street like a blade, rattling the loose metal sign above the bus stop as Clara Bennett drops to her knees beside him. The bench is coated in a thin crust of ice, and the man slumped against it barely moves, his shoulders trembling in small, uneven bursts. His breath comes out shallow, almost silent, fogging faintly in the air before disappearing. Clara presses 2 fingers against his neck, instinct faster than thought, counting 1, 2. It is there, but weak. Too weak. She glances up at the digital bus display flickering overhead. 2:12 in the morning. No buses. No footsteps. Just the hollow hum of the city holding its breath in the cold. Come on, she mutters, shrugging off her gray coat, the one with the small hand-stitched star near the cuff, the thread slightly frayed from years of wear. For a split second, her hands hesitate midair. The memory does not ask permission. It never does. A different night. A different man. I will be right back, she had said, stepping out for 5 minutes that stretched into forever. When they found him, the paramedic had not looked at her, just shook his head once. The sound of the wind snaps her back. Clara exhales sharply, jaw tightening, and wraps the coat around the stranger's shoulders, pulling it tight across his chest, tucking it in like she has done 1,000 times before with patients who could not feel their own hands. Not this time, she whispers, almost too quiet to hear. The fabric soaks up the cold instantly, but she keeps her palms pressed against him, trying to trap what little warmth remains. His skin is freezing under her touch, far past uncomfortable, into something dangerous. Hey, she says again, louder now, leaning closer. Can you hear me? No response. His head tilts slightly to the side, and for a brief second, she notices something that does not fit. His hands, not cracked or calloused the way she expects. Clean. Too clean. A faint mark along his wrist, like a recent injection. Clara blinks, but the moment slips away as his body shudders harder. Stay with me, she insists, shifting her weight, trying to pull him upright. Her sneakers scrape against the icy pavement as she drags him inch by inch toward the narrow overhang of the bus stop. The fluorescent light above flickers, casting uneven shadows across his face. He does not look old. Mid-30s, maybe. Not what she expected. Not that it matters. It never should have mattered. Her breath quickens, visible in sharp bursts as she fumbles for her phone, fingers stiff from the cold. No signal. Of course. She lets out a short, frustrated laugh that vanishes into the wind. All right, she murmurs, more to herself than to him. Then we do this the hard way. She adjusts the coat again, pressing it tighter around him, her hands lingering on the small stitched star before pulling away. You are not dying out here. Not tonight. The city stays quiet. No sirens. No footsteps. Just the sound of fabric shifting, breath struggling, and the distant echo of something unseen moving through the dark. And somewhere beneath it all, something changes. If you are still here with us, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you do not miss what happens next. And tell me this, what time is it where you are watching from? And where in the world are you right now? Clara shifts her grip under his arm and pulls again, boots slipping half an inch on the frozen concrete before she catches herself against the metal bench, the vibration rattling up her forearms. Okay, she breathes, more rhythm than words now, like she is trying to set a pace her body can follow. His weight is uneven, dead in some places, fighting her in others as his muscles twitch against the cold. She hooks his arm over her shoulder and stands in a slow, careful rise, knees locking for a second before she steadies. The overhang is barely 3 feet away, but it feels longer, like distance stretches when the air gets this sharp. The light above flickers again, buzzing, casting him in fragments. Face, shadow, face. She leans him back against the wall beneath it, crouching immediately to check his pulse again, pressing deeper this time, as if that might anchor it. Still there. Still weak. You are stubborn, she mutters under her breath, and for a moment it almost sounds like she is talking to someone else. Her hands move automatically, rubbing his arms through the coat, working heat into fabric that refuses to hold it. The star patch brushes under her thumb, and she freezes for half a second, just long enough for the pass to slip in again. A hallway with dim yellow lights. A door left slightly open. Mr. Halpern sitting where she had told him to stay, fingers tapping the armrest, eyes searching a room that did not make sense to him anymore. "Just 5 minutes," she had said, setting down his tea. She can still see the way he nodded, trusting something he could not hold on to. When she came back, the chair was empty, the front door ajar, snow blowing in across the tile. Clara blinks hard, pushing the image away as she presses both palms flat against the stranger's chest, feeling for resistance. "Do not do that," she says, sharper now, as if the memory itself had crossed a line. She pulls out her phone again, stepping a few feet away to lift it higher, searching for signal like it might appear if she just finds the right angle. Nothing. Just the faint reflection of her own face in the black screen, lips pressed thin, eyes too focused. She lowers it slowly, breath steadying into something controlled. Training settles in where panic could have been. "All right," she says quietly, turning back. "Then we improvise." She crouches beside him again, adjusting the coat tighter, tucking it under his sides to trap what little heat her hands have given. Her fingers brush his wrist again, and this time she pauses longer. The mark is not random. It is precise. Clean edge, slight discoloration, like something recent and intentional. Not street life. Not exposure. Something clinical. She glances up at his face, studying it differently now, not just as a patient, but as a question. "Who are you?" The wind answers for him, pushing a swirl of dry snow across the pavement, grains clicking softly against the bus stop glass. She exhales, then reaches for his hand, lifting it slightly, rubbing warmth back into stiff fingers. His nails are trimmed. There is no dirt under them. Even the cuff of his shirt beneath the coat is expensive. The detail sits there, out of place, like a word in the wrong sentence. Clara shakes her head once, dismissing it, not because it does not matter, but because it cannot matter yet. She shifts closer, bracing her shoulder against his, sharing what little warmth her body can offer. "You picked the wrong night for this," she says, voice low, almost conversational now, like she is filling the silence for both of them. Boston does not forgive mistakes like this. Her gaze drifts briefly toward the empty street, the long stretch of road untouched except for faint tire tracks already filling with snow. No headlights. No movement. The city feels paused, like everything that could help is just out of frame. She looks back at him, studying the small movements, the faint tremor at his jaw, the uneven pull of breath. Alive, but slipping. Clara leans in slightly, close enough that her voice does not have to fight the wind. "I left someone once," she says, not quite intending to speak it out loud. "Thought I would be back before anything could happen." Her thumb presses gently against his pulse point again, counting without looking at a clock. "Turns out 5 minutes is longer than you think." She swallows, the words settling somewhere deeper than her throat. Then she straightens just a little, resolve tightening through her shoulders. "So we are not doing that again." She shifts her position, preparing to move him again, this time not toward shelter, but somewhere warmer, somewhere inside, rules or no rules. Her grip firms under his arm, testing the weight, planning the path in her head before she even takes the first step. The coat stays wrapped around him, the small stitch star pressed between them like a quiet promise she refuses to break. Clara adjusts her footing and pulls him upright again, this time committing to the decision she had been circling since she first touched his pulse. The side entrance to the private clinic sits half a block down, past a row of darkened storefronts and a narrow alley that always smells faintly of bleach and old rain. It is not far, not on a normal night, but with his weight leaning unevenly into her and the cold biting through her sweater, every step feels negotiated. She moves in short, deliberate shifts, pausing just enough to keep him from slipping, her breath sinking with the effort. "We are going inside," she says quietly, not asking, not expecting an answer. His head dips forward slightly, chin brushing the edge of the coat collar, and for a second she thinks he might respond, but it fades just as quickly. The fabric bunches between them, thick wool already stiffening from the cold, and her fingers find the edge of the stitched star again as she tightens her hold. It is smaller than most people notice, just a rough 5-point shape cut from an old piece of blue thread, sewn on years ago in uneven lines that never quite matched. She remembers the night she added it, sitting at a kitchen table that smelled faintly of chamomile and antiseptic, Mr. Halpern watching her with that distant, patient curiosity he had even when he did not recognize her name. "So I do not lose it," she had told him, holding up the sleeve. He had smiled, slow and uncertain, then tapped the star with one finger. "Then you will always find your way back." The memory lands differently now, heavier, as she shifts his arm higher over her shoulder and keeps moving. The clinic door comes into view, a dull metal slab with a keypad glowing faint green beside it. Locked, like it should be at this hour. Clara exhales through her nose, already calculating. She does not have clearance to bring anyone in off the street, not like this. There are policies, forms, a chain of approvals that exist for a reason. Her supervisor's voice surfaces uninvited, calm and measured the way it always is. "We do not assume responsibility for unknown cases. Liability is not compassion." Clara stops just short of the door, letting him lean against the wall as she shifts her weight, one hand braced against the cold metal for balance. The wind presses in behind her, slipping through the seams of her sweater, urging her to decide. She glances down at him, really looks this time. Not the situation, not the problem to solve, but the person. His face has more color now, faint but there, his lips no longer as pale as they were at the bus stop. The coat has done something, small but real. Her coat. The star rests near his shoulder now, a quiet mark that does not belong to him but refuses to leave. Clara reaches into her pocket, fingers closing around her keycard. It is warm from her body, edges worn smooth from use. She turns it over once, twice, then slides it toward the reader without fully committing, stopping just before it touches. Another image surfaces, sharper than the rest. Snow drifting through an open doorway, settling on tile that should have been dry. The chair empty. The silence that followed louder than anything she had heard before. She closes her eyes for a brief second, not to escape it, but to hold it in place, to look at it without turning away. When she opens them again, her hand does not hesitate. The card taps the reader with a soft click, the green light shifting to red, then back again, processing. A second later, the lock releases with a low mechanical sound that feels louder than it should in the quiet. Clara does not pause to reconsider. She pulls the door open with her free hand, guiding him forward into the narrow hallway beyond. The air inside is warmer, carrying that familiar blend of disinfectant and something faintly citrus, and for a moment her shoulders drop without permission. She kicks the door shut behind them, the sound sealing off the wind like a boundary drawn in real time. "You are not staying out there," she murmurs, more statement than reassurance, adjusting the coat once more as she leads him deeper into the building. The star catches briefly under the fluorescent light, thread glinting just enough to be seen before it disappears in a shadow again, moving with them. Part of the story now, whether it was meant to be or not. The hallway hums softly under fluorescent lights as Clara guides him past a row of closed exam rooms, her shoulder braced against his weight, while her eyes flick toward the nurse's station at the far end. Empty, for now. The overnight shift runs thin, one nurse covering 3 wings, a security guard who checks doors more than people. She angles him toward a small supply room she knows stays unlocked, nudging the door open with her foot and easing him inside before anyone has a reason to ask questions. The space is narrow, shelves stacked with linens and sealed kits, the air warmer, but still carrying that sterile edge that clings to everything in the building. Clara lowers him carefully onto a folded stack of blankets, adjusting his position so his back rests against the wall rather than slumping forward. "Do not make me regret this," she mutters, more breath than voice, as she reaches for a clean towel and a thermal blanket from the shelf. Her hands move quickly, practiced, but there is a tightness in her shoulders that does not belong to routine. She wraps the thermal layer over her coat, trapping heat, then crouches close again, checking his pulse with the same quiet insistence. Stronger. Not steady, but better. She exhales once, controlled. The room settles into a low, contained silence broken only by the faint buzz of the overhead light. Then, without warning, his hand shifts. Not the reflexive tremor from before, but something deliberate, fingers tightening slightly against the fabric at his chest. Clara stills, eyes snapping to his face. His brow creases, just barely, like something pulling him upward through layers he does not want to leave. "Hey," she says, softer now, leaning in. "Easy." His eyes open a fraction, unfocused at first, then narrowing as if the light is too much. For a moment, he does not move, just breathes, slow and uneven, gaze drifting across the room before landing on her. There is a pause there, a beat that stretches longer than it should, as if he is measuring something she cannot see. "You should not have done that," he says, voice rough, not from weakness alone but from disuse, like words are unfamiliar after being held back too long. Clara does not answer right away. She adjusts the edge of the coat instead, tucking it closer around his shoulder where the star rests near his collarbone. "You were outside," she says finally, tone flat, almost practical. "That tends to end one way tonight." His gaze drops briefly, following her movement, and lingers on the patch of thread before shifting back to her face. "Still," he replies, slower this time, each word placed carefully. "Not your responsibility." There is something off in the way he says it. Not dismissive, not grateful either. More like a statement he has repeated before and expects to hold. Clara leans back slightly, resting her weight on her heels, studying him without trying to hide it. "You always tell strangers what they should or should not do?" she asks. Her voice carries a faint edge now, not sharp enough to start anything, but not neutral either. He almost smiles at that, though it does not fully reach his eyes. Only when they break rules this easily. The words hang there, light on the surface, heavier underneath. Clara's jaw tightens a fraction, just enough to notice if you are looking for it. She reaches for a pair of gloves, pulling them on slowly, buying herself a second before responding. "You do not know what rules I broke," she says, turning back to him, her tone quieter but steadier. "And you do not know why." Another pause. He watches her, really watches this time, gaze sharper despite the exhaustion still written into the lines of his face. "Then tell me," he says. Not a demand. Not exactly a request either. Clara does not answer. Instead, she checks his wrist again, fingers pressing lightly over the mark she noticed earlier. He flinches, subtle but real, and his hand pulls back just enough to confirm it was not accidental. Their eyes meet again, and something shifts, small but undeniable. "That is not from the cold," she says, almost to herself, but loud enough for him to hear. He follows her gaze, then looks away, the movement controlled, intentional. "No," he says after a moment. "It is not." The admission sits between them, incomplete, like a door left half open. Clara tilts her head slightly, considering him in a different way now, not just as someone she dragged in from the street, but as a question that does not fit its surroundings. "So," she says, pulling the thermal blanket tighter around him, fingers brushing the star again without noticing. "You want to explain why someone like you is out there freezing at 2 in the morning?" He lets out a slow breath, eyes closing briefly as if deciding how much to give. When they open again, they are clearer, more focused than before. "No," he answers simply. Another pause. Then, almost as an afterthought, he adds, "But I might ask you the same thing." Clara does not react immediately. She sits back on her heels again, the distance between them small but deliberate, her expression unreadable in the fluorescent light. "You can ask," she says. "Does not mean I will answer." For a moment, neither of them moves. The room holds the silence differently now, no longer empty, but charged with something neither of them names. Outside, somewhere down the hall, a door clicks shut, footsteps passing without slowing. Inside, Clara reaches for another blanket, layering it over him with careful precision, her hands steady even as her thoughts shift. He watches her the entire time, not with suspicion, not with gratitude, but with a kind of attention that suggests he is trying to place her in a pattern that does not quite fit. And when her fingers linger for just a second too long at the edge of the coat, brushing that small stitched star again, he notices that too, even if he does not say it. Clara sits back against the metal shelving for a moment, the cool surface pressing through her sweater, grounding her in something solid while the room hums quietly around them. The man watches her without trying to hide it, his breathing steadier now, though still shallow enough to remind her this is not over. She reaches for a plastic bottle of water from the supply shelf, cracks the seal, and holds it out. "Small sips," she says, not looking at him directly, her attention fixed on the way his fingers hesitate before taking it. He lifts it slowly, as if measuring the distance, then takes a careful sip, the movement controlled but not weak. That catches her off guard more than anything else. People coming back from the edge usually look different, disoriented, grateful. He looks focused, present, like he is cataloging everything. You always carry water into supply rooms? He asks after a moment, voice still rough, but more grounded. Clara leans her head back lightly against the shelf, eyes closing for a second before she answers. I work 12-hour shifts, she says. You learn to keep things where you need them. He nods once, as if that fits into whatever structure he is building in his head. The silence stretches again, but this time it does not feel empty. It feels shared, not comfortable exactly, but no longer hostile. Clara shifts her weight, pulling one knee up slightly, arms resting loosely over it. You should keep your hands under the blanket, she adds after a moment, glancing at him. You lose heat faster than you think. He follows the instruction without argument, tucking the water bottle between his hands as if holding on to it gives him something to do. You talk like you have done this before, he says, not accusing, just stating. Clara lets out a small breath through her nose, something almost like a laugh, but not quite. I have, she replies, just not usually in supply closets. His mouth tilts slightly at that, a faint acknowledgement of humor, but his eyes remain steady on her. And does it usually work, he asks. She pauses. Not long, just enough to feel the weight of the question settle. Her gaze drops to the floor, tracing the thin seam between two tiles. Not always, she says quietly. He does not press right away. That, more than anything, shifts something. Most people would. Fill the space. Ask what happened, why, how bad it was. He lets it sit, lets her choose. Clara exhales slowly, fingers tapping once against her knee before going still. There was a man, she says, almost as if she is testing the shape of the words before committing to them. Mr. Halpern. He liked chamomile tea. Same time every night, no matter what. She glances up briefly, then back down, voice staying even, almost clinical, but the edges are softer now. He did not always remember where he was, or who I was, but he remembered the tea. The man across from her listens without interrupting, his attention quiet but complete. Clara shifts slightly, the movement small, like she is adjusting something inside herself rather than her position. One night, I stepped out, she continues. Phone call. I thought I would be back before the water even cooled. Her hand lifts unconsciously, mimicking the motion of setting something down. When I came back, the chair was empty. She stops there, does not elaborate, does not need to. The rest fills the space on its own. The man's grip tightens slightly around the bottle, the plastic crinkling softly. And you think staying would have changed it, he says, not quite a question. Clara's eyes flick to him, sharper now, but not defensive. Just aware. I think I do not get to find out, she answers. He nods once, slow, absorbing that. That is not the same thing, he says after a moment. She studies him, something unreadable passing through her expression. It is close enough, she replies. The room quiets again, but the air feels different now, like something has been placed between them that neither of them is pretending not to see. He shifts slightly against the wall, adjusting the blanket, the movement more deliberate now that his body is cooperating again. His hand brushes the sleeve of the coat, fingers pausing over the stitched star. This, he says, almost absently, tracing the edge of it. You carry it for him? Clara looks at the patch, then back at his hand resting there. I made it after, she says, so I would not forget which one was mine. He considers that, thumb pressing lightly against the thread. You were not going to forget, he says. Clara's lips press together for a second, something like a smile threatening, but not fully forming. No, she admits. But it is different when you can see it. He nods again, slower this time, his gaze lingering on the small, imperfect shape. It looks deliberate, he says. Not perfect, but intentional. Clara tilts her head slightly, studying him in return. That is one way to describe uneven stitching, she says. A faint hint of amusement slips through, softening the edges of the room just a little. He almost smiles again, but it fades before settling. Or, he adds, voice quieter now, someone who does not want to pretend something was not broken. That lands differently. Clara does not respond right away. She watches him for a long second, then looks away, eyes drifting toward the closed door, listening to the distant movement of the building carrying on without them. You talk like you know something about that, she says eventually, tone neutral but not dismissive. He shifts slightly, the motion careful, like he is choosing how much to give. Everyone does, he says. It is not an answer. Not really. But it is enough to keep the line from going dead. Clara nods once, accepting it for what it is. Not truth. Not avoidance. Something in between. She pushes herself up slowly, moving back to the shelf to grab another blanket, layering it over him with practiced precision. Her hands are steady again, but the space between them has changed, carrying a quiet understanding that did not exist before. Not comfort, not trust, but recognition. And when she tucks the edge of the coat back into place, her fingers brushing the stitched star one more time, neither of them pretends it is just fabric anymore. Clara is adjusting the edge of the blanket when the overhead lights flicker once, then steady again, a subtle shift that barely registers until footsteps echo faintly down the hallway outside. Not rushed, not random, measured. She pauses, hand still resting near the stitched star, her head tilting slightly as she listens. The man notices it too. His eyes move toward the door, not with alarm, but with recognition. That is the first thing that does not fit. You expecting someone? Clara asks, her voice low, not accusing, just aware. He does not answer right away. Instead, he sits up a little straighter, testing his balance, the motion controlled in a way that feels practiced rather than cautious. The difference is small, but it lands. The footsteps stop just outside. A soft murmur. Then the door handle shifts slightly, not opening, just testing. Clara's gaze sharpens. Staff do not hesitate like that. They either come in or they do not. You need to lie back, she says quietly, her tone changing just enough to signal something has shifted. He looks at her, then at the door, then back again. I am fine, he says, and this time the roughness in his voice feels thinner, like something he is shedding rather than something he cannot control. The handle stills. A second later, a voice comes through the door, low but clear. Mr. Cole. Clara does not move at first. The name hangs in the air, not loud, not dramatic, just placed there. The man exhales slowly, almost imperceptibly, and closes his eyes for a brief second before opening them again. When he looks at her now, something in his expression has settled into place. Not new, revealed. Clara's hand drops from the blanket, her fingers curling slightly as if they need something to hold on to. You have the wrong room, she calls out, her voice steady, but her eyes do not leave his. The silence outside stretches, then the voice again, more certain this time. Sir, we tracked your location signal. Security is here. We need to move. Location signal. The words land differently. Clara's gaze flicks to his wrist, to the faint mark she pressed earlier, then back to his face. He watches her process it, does not interrupt, does not rush it. That might be the strangest part. He is letting her arrive there on her own. You were not lost? She says quietly, not quite a question. He shakes his head once. No, the answer is simple. Too simple. The space between them tightens, not physically, but in something harder to define. Clara stands slowly, the movement deliberate, putting a small distance between them without fully stepping away. Mr. Cole, she repeats, testing the name like it might change shape if she says it again. Should I know that? He studies her for a moment, then reaches toward the edge of the coat, fingers brushing the stitched star again before letting it fall. Most people do, he says. There is no arrogance in it. Just fact. Clara lets out a quiet breath, something between a laugh and disbelief, but it does not fully form either. Right, she says, nodding once, more to herself than to him. Of course. The pieces begin to align, not cleanly, but enough. The mark on his wrist, the way he spoke, the way he observed, the way he did not panic. None of it belonged to the man she thought she dragged in from the cold. Outside, the handle shifts again, firmer this time. Sir, we are coming in, the voice says. Clara moves before she fully decides to, stepping closer to the door, one hand lifting slightly, as if she can hold it in place just by being there. She does not touch it. Not yet. If they walk in, she says without turning around, her voice quieter now. This becomes something else. Behind her, he shifts again, the blankets falling slightly as he adjusts, no longer conserving energy the same way. It already is, he replies. She closes her eyes for a fraction of a second, then opens them again, looking at the door, then at her reflection in the small metal panel beside it. Not the caregiver. Not the one who follows protocol. The one who let someone in. The one who decided. Slowly, she steps aside. Not fully, just enough. The door opens a few inches, then wider, and two men in dark coats step into the room, their presence controlled, professional, but undeniably out of place among the stacked linens and fluorescent light. One of them moves immediately toward him, stopping short as if waiting for permission that has not been given yet. The other glances at Clara, assessing, not unkind, but not casual either. "Sir," the first man says again, softer now. The man on the blankets looks at Clara, not at them. "I told you," he says quietly, almost like a continuation of something unfinished. "You should not have done that." This time, it does not sound like a warning. It sounds like acknowledgement. Clara does not answer. She stands there, the space between what she thought she understood and what is actually happening stretching wider with every second, her hand still hovering near the door, as if she has not fully decided whether to close it or let everything that follows come through. The room shifts in a way that is hard to name once the two men step fully inside, like the air itself has decided to belong to something else. Clara watches the one nearest to Ethan hesitate just enough to confirm what she already senses, that nothing in here is moving without his approval. That, more than the name, lands. Ethan does not look at them right away. He is still watching her. That feels intentional. "We need to get you out of here," the first man says, voice low, controlled, as if he is used to rooms like this changing direction quickly. Ethan does not respond. Instead, he swings his legs slowly off the blankets, steadying himself with one hand. Against the wall. The movement is measured, not rushed, and Clara notices how little he wavers now. He stands, the thermal layers slipping slightly from his shoulders, her coat still wrapped beneath it, the small stitched star catching the light for a brief second before settling again. "You are not leaving yet," Clara says, before she has fully decided to speak. It is not loud. It does not need to be. All three men look at her. Not surprised. Not dismissive. Just recalibrating. The second man shifts his weight slightly, as if preparing to intervene, but Ethan lifts a hand just enough to stop him. That small gesture carries more authority than any raised voice could. "Clara," Ethan says, using her name without hesitation now. It lands differently coming from him like this. Not tentative. Not searching. Certain. "This is not your responsibility." She exhales once, a quiet, controlled release, and steps closer, closing the space she had just created. "You said that already," she replies, her tone even, but her eyes sharper now. It did not change anything the first time. A flicker passes across his expression, something brief and unreadable, before it settles again. "You brought me in against protocol," he continues, not ignoring her, but redirecting the frame. "You exposed yourself to liability you do not understand." Clara's jaw tightens slightly, but she does not look away. "I understood enough," she says. "You were going to freeze." One of the men shifts again, exchanging a glance with the other, something unspoken passing between them. Ethan notices. He always notices. "That was not an accident," he says, and this time there is no softness in it. No room for interpretation. Clara's brow furrows, just slightly, as the words settle. "What does that mean?" she asks. He takes a breath, slower now, more deliberate, like he is deciding how much to pull her into something she did not choose. "I was supposed to be out there," he says. "For a reason." The room stills, not in silence, but in focus. Clara studies him, searching for the edge of a lie and not finding one. "That makes it worse." "You chose that?" she asks, the question quiet but weighted. He does not hesitate. "Yes." The answer lands harder than anything else tonight. Clara takes a small step back, not retreating, but creating just enough distance to think. Her gaze drops briefly to the coat, to the stitched star pressed against his side, then lifts again. "So what?" she says slowly, each word placed with care. "You were running some kind of test?" There is no accusation in it. Not yet. Just a need to define the shape of what she is standing in. Ethan's eyes hold hers. Something like that. It is not a denial. It is not confirmation either. It is enough. Clara lets out a breath that almost turns into a laugh but stops halfway, the sound catching somewhere between disbelief and something sharper. "And she gestures slightly, not wide, just enough to include the room, the blankets, the coat." "What interfered?" The second man shifts again, this time less subtly, but Ethan does not look away from her. Yes, he says. No apology. No softening. Just the truth as he sees it. Clara nods once, slowly, absorbing it. The motion is small, but it carries weight. Right, she says. So next time I should leave someone outside because they might be part of a plan I cannot see. Her voice remains steady, but there is something under it now, something that does not need to rise to be felt. Ethan's expression tightens just slightly, the first real crack in the control he has held since he woke. That is not what I am saying. It sounds like it. She replies, not louder, just clearer. The room narrows around them, the presence of the other two men fading into the edges as the space between Clara and Ethan sharpens into something more precise. Not anger, not betrayal, something closer to a line being drawn. You think you had a choice tonight, Ethan says after a moment, his voice lower now, more focused. You think this was about one person in the cold. It is not. Clara holds his gaze, unflinching. It was for me, she says. The simplicity of it lands harder than anything layered could. He studies her, something shifting behind his eyes, recalculating, reassessing, like the variables no longer line up the way he expected. Then you need to understand what you stepped into, he says. Clara's fingers brush the edge of the coat again, finding the stitched star without looking, grounding herself in something that does not change. No, she says quietly. You need to understand why I did not have a choice. The words settle between them, not as an argument, but as a boundary neither of them can ignore. And for the first time since the door opened, the room does not feel like it belongs to him anymore. It belongs to the decision she made and everything that comes with it. For a moment, no one moves. The fluorescent light hums overhead, steady, indifferent, like the building itself refuses to acknowledge the shift happening inside that narrow room. Clara stands where she is, fingers still resting lightly against the edge of the coat, the stitched star pressed under her thumb. Ethan watches her, waiting, not pushing, but not stepping back either. The two men near the door hold their positions, trained to read silence as much as orders. Then Clara turns, not toward Ethan, toward the shelf. It is a small movement, almost forgettable, but it breaks the tension just enough to change its shape. She reaches for a clipboard tucked between stacks of sterile packs, flipping it open with practiced ease. The pages are blank intake forms, standard, forgettable, the kind no one questions until they need to. She scans it once, then grabs a pen from the pocket of her scrub pants and begins writing. The sound of pen against paper cuts through the room, soft but deliberate. Ethan's gaze sharpens slightly. What are you doing? He asks, not suspicious, but attentive. Clara does not look up. If you were supposed to be out there, she says, her voice steady, then someone was supposed to find you. She fills in a name, pauses for half a second, then keeps going. Not his name. Not the one the man at the door used. Something else. A placeholder. A person who exists just enough to be real on paper. And if they did not? Ethan asks. She flips the page, presses harder this time, the pen leaving a deeper impression. Then it becomes a different problem, she replies. One of the men near the door steps forward slightly, confusion breaking through. His composure. Ma'am, that is not necessary, he says, tone careful, like he is stepping into something he does not fully understand. Clara glances at him briefly, just long enough to register his presence, then looks back down at the form. It is, she says simply. The room quiets again, but the silence is different now. It has direction. Clara finishes writing, then tears the top sheet free with a clean, controlled motion. She crosses the small space and places it on a metal cart beside the door, positioning it where it will be seen first. Not hidden, not emphasized, just present. Then she turns back to Ethan. You were found at 2:14 a.m., she says, her tone shifting slightly, more formal now, like she is stepping into a role she knows too well. Severe cold exposure. Brought in by staff. Stabilized. Each word lands like a piece being set into place. Ethan studies her, the realization unfolding not in surprise, but in recognition. She is not undoing what happened. She is anchoring it, making it real in a way that cannot be erased later. You are creating a record, he says quietly. Clara nods once. I am creating accountability, she corrects. The distinction matters. He sees that. One of the men shifts again, more uneasy now. Sir, this complicates things, he says, glancing between them. Ethan does not respond to him. His attention stays on Clara. You understand what that does, he says, not a warning, not a threat, just a statement. Clara meets his gaze, steady, unflinching. Yes, she says. And she does. The paperwork, the timestamp, the documented intake, it all ties the night to a place, to a system, to people who will have to answer questions if those threads are pulled. It removes the option of this being just another controlled variable in whatever he was doing. It makes it human, tangible, risky. Clara reaches out then, not toward him, but toward the coat. She adjusts it once more, smoothing the fabric where it had shifted, her fingers brushing over the stitched star before she pauses. For a second, she hesitates. Then, slowly, she pulls the coat free from under the thermal layer. The movement is careful, deliberate, not abrupt. The room watches without interrupting. She folds it once, twice, the star visible on top, then walks back to the cart and places it beside the form. Not with him, with the record. Ethan's eyes follow the motion, something tightening briefly in his expression before settling again. You are leaving it, he says. Clara nods. It was part of the intake, she replies. It stays with the file. The words are simple, but the choice behind them is not. She is not taking it back, not carrying it forward like she has before. She is placing it where it belongs now, tied to this night, this decision, this line she chose not to step back from. Ethan exhales slowly, the sound quiet but carrying weight. That coat mattered to you, he says. Clara looks at it once, just a glance, then back at him. So does this, she answers. There is no hesitation in it. No second thought. Just a clear line between what she was holding onto and what she is choosing now. The room settles around that, the tension shifting from uncertainty to consequence. Ethan straightens slightly, no longer leaning, no longer recovering, but present in a different way now. You changed the outcome, he says. Clara shrugs lightly, not dismissive, just grounded. No, she replies. I made sure there is one. The distinction lands. Outside, somewhere down the hall, a phone rings, distant, ordinary, the building continuing on as if nothing here has shifted. But inside the room, everything has. Ethan glances once at the coat on the cart, the small stitched star catching the light, then back at Clara. There is something new in his expression now. Not control, not calculation. Something closer to respect, though he does not name it. We are leaving, he says finally, turning slightly toward the men at the door. They move immediately, the structure reasserting itself, but not quite the same as before. As he steps past the cart, his hand pauses for just a second near the coat, not touching it, just acknowledging its place there. Then he continues, moving toward the door, toward whatever comes next, carrying with him something that was not part of his plan. And Clara stays where she is, beside the record she created, the space. Quieter now, but no less real, her hand resting lightly against the edge of the cart, grounding herself in the weight of what she chose to keep and what she finally let go. The door closes behind them with a soft, final click that lingers longer than it should, the sound settling into the room like something being sealed rather than simply shut. Clara does not move right away. The cart remains where she left it, the form still slightly curled at the edge, the coat folded with the stitched star facing up, catching the overhead light in a quiet, steady way. For a moment, the room feels larger, emptier, like something essential has been taken out of it. She exhales slowly, her shoulders dropping just enough to register the absence of tension she had been holding without noticing. Then she steps forward, not toward the door, but toward the cart. Her fingers hover over the paper first, tracing the indentation left by the pen, the pressure of each letter still visible if you look close enough. Real. Fixed. She lets her hand rest there for a second before shifting to the coat. The wool has warmed slightly, no longer stiff with cold, the fabric softer under her touch. She lifts it just enough to feel the weight, then sets it back down exactly where it was. Not reclaiming it, not distancing from it either, just acknowledging it. Down the hall, the rhythm of the building returns in small, ordinary ways. A distant phone ringing, the low murmur of a voice, a cart rolling across tile. Clara straightens, rolling her shoulders back once before reaching for the clipboard again. She adjusts the form, aligns it neatly, then adds one last detail in the margin, a timestamp correction, precise down to the minute. 2:14. She circles it lightly, not for emphasis, but for clarity. The kind of mark that does not draw attention unless someone is looking for it. When she steps back this time, there is a different stillness in her posture. Not the hesitation from before. Something quieter. Resolved. The door at the end of the hall opens briefly, and for a split second, she catches a glimpse of movement, a dark coat passing, a figure pausing just outside the frame. It could be anyone. It probably is. But there is a brief, almost imperceptible shift in the air, like recognition without acknowledgement. Then it is gone. Clara does not follow. She turns instead, moving to the sink in the corner, running warm water over her hands. The heat stings at first, bringing sensation back into her fingers in small, sharp pulses. She rubs them together slowly, watching the water run clear, the motion steady, controlled. When she dries them, she takes a second longer than necessary, pressing the towel between her palms before folding it and setting it aside. As she reaches for the light switch, her gaze drifts once more to the cart. The coat remains there, the stitched star visible, no longer something she carries, but something that stays. Not as a reminder of what she failed to do, but of what she chose differently. Clara turns off the light, the room dimming into shadow except for the faint glow from the hallway beyond. She steps out, pulling the door gently closed behind her, the click softer this time, less final, more like a pause. And as she walks down the hall, her pace steady, unhurried, there is no sense of something unresolved trailing behind her. Just a quiet shift, the kind that does not announce itself, but changes everything that comes after. If this moment stayed with you, share what you felt and follow along for more stories like this. Thank you.